Good morning, Lawn Pro Radio. Wayne Voles, Profits Unlimited, coming to you live from Louisville, Kentucky, as always. Yes, indeed. Appreciate you guys being here with us. Looking forward to a good show today. Oh, my God. I just tell you what, it's crazy. Rain again, getting a late start. Oh, Lord, just take a deep breath and say, all right, let's do it. Let's do it. And that's what we're doing. So anyways, we going to talk a little bit about that today, actually, with you guys. So but hey, man, we had Aaron was hopped on this morning and had a great show, was talking about sports and the way he likes sports and the college season coming around and pro season coming around and whatnot. But he made a comparison, though, between sports and his business. And I don't know if you guys had a chance to hear that or not, but it was a pretty cool analogy on, blending the two on, what was his offensive line and what was his defense and, what controlled cash flow and what worked with profitability. So it was really a cool little combo that he put together with that. So if you guys get a chance anywhere you like to hear your anywhere that you like to hear your podcast, there you go. Just go back, listen to that. And it was a good show this morning, no doubt. And Aaron always does a good job. Y'all know that. But it's called Aaron's Honest Review. And, you may not agree with him, but in what his reviews are and what he says about things. And well, I don't want you to agree with everything. Hell, wouldn't be any fun if everybody was a yes man, and said, well, you got to do it this way, Wayne's way or no way or the highway, No, man, it's everybody's show. They do it the way they want to do it, and they rock and roll with it. And hey, until we see that it does or doesn't work, then we'll go from there. And I'm not talking about Aaron's show. I'm talking about anybody's show, any station, just the way it works. So, Aaron, we love you, man. Keep doing what you're doing. And I like the way you talked about your your lighting was on your offense. Your snow and ice management was on your offensive line, and then I ended up getting a phone call and didn't hear when you made your comparisons and set your defense up, man. But it was a really cool analogy, and we'll just go with that. So, good morning, Seth. Glad you're here with us, buddy. And I guess it was raining down your way this morning too. So, not to beat that horse, but we are going to beat that horse a little bit later in a few minutes, actually, about just the craziness of it. But Heckabus had a great show this morning as well, and Daniel, and here we are to profit time already, 10 a.m. on Monday, August 17th, over halfway through the month. And that's hard to believe too. It's just keeps rocking and rolling. Appreciate you guys talking about Lawn Pro Radio out there. Appreciate if you would continue to do that and continue to share it on any social media platform that you can. We need your help. And without you guys getting our name out there for contractors all over the country to listen to, the message isn't getting out there. So, appreciate that, and I appreciate all the new listeners that we have as well. Just wanted to put that out there as well. Everybody matters, and that's really a true statement here on Lawn Pro Radio. Each and every one of you guys, it's our goal here to help educate the industry and bring the cream to the crop and cream of the crop to the top. There we go. Say that 3 times real fast, but that's it, just to make everybody's business better. And we'll do it, one business at a time. We'll start with yours. So, and then you can help me with mine, and we help somebody else with theirs. And before long, hey, we've got a well-respected industry. And I think the industry is better respected than it used to be, quite honestly, by most, by most anyway. I'll put it that away. But anyways, it takes all of us, and it's done through training, education, and knowledge, and that's the reality of it. And speaking of training, education, and knowledge, uh, we'll talk a little bit about that too this week. We got a seminar we're going up to do, and we'll talk to you about that here in a second. But before we get into that, curious about your weekend. There's Chad Harden. Hey man, just did storm at your house last night too. Oh my God. It was crazy. I walked out on my front porch, y'all, and it went from not raining to no rain around us to thunder and lightning. And I mean, it was rolling.
Yeah, it
It,
went from grill weather to not grill weather real quick.
yeah. I think Daniel and y'all were grilling. I think
Yeah.
Caitlin sent me a thing, said she was trying to get that off, man, the grill
Yeah.
in time. But I walked out on my front porch, which is real small, little 5 by 3 area, something just a little stoop, a porch, not a big sit on porch. Couldn't get a chair on it if you tried. But man, the wind and the rain was just blowing sideways, and it was like I got a little tree about 8 feet tall in the front yard, and it was even moving, and it don't move much because it's so short and not big. And I was like, damn, man, where did this come from?
Yeah.
You know? But then part of the city, I guess, didn't even get rain.
Huh.
I mean, it was crazy. Daniel, you out your all's way got
Yeah.
rolling pretty good.
Yeah.
Chad said it was rolling pretty good at his house.
Yeah.
So, man, it just who knows? But anyway, we are going to talk a little bit about the rain today. I mean, well, they say talk about the weather, right? But I'm curious, is how it's affecting your all's business as well. And I mean, I know a lot of you guys watch us on the podcast version and listen to it on the podcast version, but we would appreciate some comments, on this year specifically, because I know it started out very dry for a lot. It still is dry for some, but I know a lot of people across the country have experienced uh, greater than average um, rainfall this summer. I know for us, they said it's our seventh wettest summer on history, and or in history, however you want to look at it. But you look at that, Daniel, and that's impressive to I mean that's impressive to say it's the most rain, seventh most amount of rain you've had during a summer. It's different to just stay green and growing.
Yeah.
But
I wonder how long that is
I think
throughout.
I want to say they mid 1800s is what they had records on, but I wouldn't swear to that. But I believe it was like I don't know,
Hmm.
but it was crazy and still is. And just curious, I mean, from your all's perspective, is it how's it affecting you? But and get that going. Fred said it might as well be April 1st there.
Yeah.
I believe he's up around the Indianapolis area. So it's crazy. But we are going to talk about that a little bit. But before we talk about that, I want to take a short break, and we'll be right back with more Profit Time here on Lawn Pro Radio. We'll be right back. Another late start for us here at WLS this morning. Curious how you guys listening to us live, or if you're on time this morning. Hopefully so. Hopefully so. Hopefully you got everybody out on time this morning. But we got everybody reported 10 a.m. this morning, and hopefully we get to have a decent day out there today. That's our goal, and that's certainly our target for the day is to try to get some lawns done today, get some grass cut today. So it's going to be wet. I mean, that's just a reality of it. That's you got to be careful too. You guys understand that. That's something that I want to talk a little bit about. But we got to be careful about what we're mowing wet. And hang on to that thought for just a second, because they kind of blend together. That kind of goes back to your training and education, right? I mean, what you can do, what you can't do. Seth says it's affected his some, but just got to act like a duck and let it roll off your back. I'm glad it's helping farmers. So I did hear that a lot of the farming world. I did see that on. Actually, I was watching that on a national broadcast. Seth, they were talking about how some of them have been inundated, but a lot of them have really had a really good growing season. because of the weather, because it was dry to start. So they were able to get everything in the ground good and on time and whatnot. So, it's like everything. It's good for one, bad for another, and generally, I mean that's just the way it is. But Thursday this week, for you guys that would like to attend an educational session up in the Indianapolis area, we're going to be up there doing a bidding and estimating presentation, 2 hour presentation. It should be a fun thing to go up there and do. I'm looking forward to getting back up in that area and doing that for them. It's Indiana Professional Lawn and Landscape Association is having their annual field day. I believe it's their 40th annual. That they're doing, and they've got a lot of CEU credits available. Not for our class. I don't want to mislead anybody on that. There will be no CEUs for our class, but will be business training for you. So they're both important. They're both very important. And so if you're looking to maybe pop in, and if you don't need a full day of CEUs. If you do, I understand that too, that you got to maintain that licensing, right? But if you got time in your schedule, we'd love to have you in our session. I believe they told us we're in 2 different rooms, I think, is the way they got us set up. So we're looking forward to that. That they've joined. So hopefully we have a nice little attendance there. We're looking forward to that. And I know they said they're planning on somewhere around between 450 and 500 total registrants for the day up there for everything. So sounds like it's going to be a nice day. Should be a good size uh, little event. So they're having it at the Hendricks County Conference Center and Fairgrounds in Danville, Indiana. So if you haven't had a chance to sign up, or if you hadn't heard about it yet, you think you may be interested, feel free to reach out to the Indiana Professional Lawn and Landscape Association. And I'm sure they'd love to have you, and we'd love to have you in our group. If you can't come, if you can't come live to attend, stay with us. We're going to be broadcasting live. Lawn Pro Radio will be broadcasting live uh, pretty much throughout the day. We'll be on and off some, but based on where they set us up. And but Katie and Daniel are going to handle all of our live info there coming to you during the day. So be sure to leave Lawn Pro Radio on and join us. So, but it's crazy, and hopefully it doesn't rain. Fred, I haven't even looked at the forecast up there, buddy. If you don't, and I could real quick, but if you don't mind, if you're still in with us, buddy, what's the quick forecast for Thursday? Is it looking decent up there? Hopefully it is for all their outdoor events. That always makes the field day side of things good. But I know the other day when I looked at our Saturday, I think it looked like the weather may be okay. So hopefully that's still where they're at. And try to decide. We're going to get us a hotel room to stay in. We're going to come up Wednesday evening and be over there early, probably around 7 a.m. Thursday. I think their registration starts at 7:30, and clear and 80 for Thursday. Thank you, man. I appreciate doing that for us. And also, Fred, little local information, if you don't mind, help me out on my radio. It's kind of weird asking y'all this on radio, but is Plainfield, would that be our closest area to stay over on that side of town? Um, so I'm generally staying in the downtown area for when I'm doing dealer presentations around there or over on the Fisher side. So going on the west side's a little different for me. So, all right. Appreciate that. Appreciate that, Fred. So Plainfield's where we'll look. That's where we'll be. And it sounds like a winner. But, being that it's the 7th wettest summer on record for us, and a lot of you guys are maybe even more than that or less than that. But if you've been above normal in rainfall, which a lot have, you know, how are you compensating for that with rescheduling? And this is one time when you really find out, how you've done as far as booking labor hours, uh, for a mowing route or for landscape scheduling or whatever services are that you're providing. But specifically, let's look at mowing for just a second, and then we can look at it from different angles too. But um, it just seems like, you know, when you've got this much rain going on and you've got this many times that you've changed schedules around and whatnot. Now I know some of the per cut guys are liking it, but from a flat rate contractual basis, we're dealing with it, but we don't like it because we give up that time in the spring when it's generally our wettest, right? And make up that labor now when things go quicker on the job. So uh, you get a year like this, and it certainly can affect your profitability on your jobs. And I didn't know if that's something that a lot of you guys even think about or worry about. And but what you certainly can't do is say, okay, well, we're going to price our jobs based on excessive amount of rain or being excessively dry. Or, I think when we're pricing jobs, we're basing it on frequency of service, first. And then, in other words, is it going to be a weekly service all year long? This is one of the things we're going to talk about up there in our seminar. But is frequency. How it's not just, hey, this much to mow the lawn, but what's the frequency going to be set up on? And so that's where you get into a lot of rain, if you will, where you're rescheduling or you're 2 or 3 days late getting something mowed. Hey, Derek, getting something mowed. Kyle's got it over there for you, Derek. It can be kind of a little bit of problematic. You know, that's the reality of it. So, um, anyways, that's what we got going on here today. So, other than that, that's what we got going, and we're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back. Just curious how it may be affecting, you guys. Um, Fred says, "Yeah, we're definitely not getting away with not cutting the back nine on any of your commercial properties this year." True that. I mean, it's not that you count on it, but you count on it. Like I said, you're going to have those labor hours built up and built into the spring, but then you know that, hey, we're going to be faster in the summer, and make it up. But for you guys that are on per cut, I mean, that, hey, works a little differently, but doesn't mean it's always going to work out either way. But I'd rather do it the way we do it, and that is strictly, you got an annual pricing on your mowing based on a frequency of service, and that's what you pay for your services. But some guys try to cheat the system on that. We're not going to get into that side of it today, but I wanted to talk more about the how, when, especially for smaller companies that have crews, whether it's mowing crews that do landscaping as well, or when you got to pull some landscaping guys to potentially do some mowing, you know, how you work around that within your business, and what makes it, easier for you to satisfy customers. Because, it's going to be wet today, for an example. Probably going to have some issues with some lawns, maybe not being able to mow some of them, because I know just for us in general, we had about an inch and a half of rain since yesterday afternoon. So, and the bad part about it is, yeah, the good thing about thunderstorms is it rains, you get a lot of runoff. But this last round we had didn't work quite so well, because it started this morning in like 3 o'clock in the morning, and was going overnight. And, it was more of a steady rain. So, which you don't get nearly the runoff that you get. So, now's when your ability and your team's ability to know who you can cut, who you can't cut, even if it means moving ahead, maybe doing some of the lawns on Tuesday, for an example. so you get ahead on those because hey, I can mow those because those will be all right to mow. Whereas you can't go back, well, I know I can't mow Miss Smith's yard. There's no way. She's, down a hill and she's got this and that, and the next thing, and all the management practices you got to put in play, when you're trying to get things going on a rain delay that create scheduling conflicts, put landscaping work off, or maybe if it's landscaping to landscaping work, so it can be very problematic. And you just got to know, to Seth's point, I think Seth made a really good point. You just got to roll with it and let it roll off your back. And you ultimately, we do what we can do. And I think most of our customers understand that. When I say our customers, your customers as well. But it can get a little bit challenging sometimes. And but you know what, we do what we can do. We got had lawns in really good shape, and then we started raining every second or third day, and now we got a lot of disease and fungus issues going on in lawns. And some people are treating them, some aren't treating them. I mean, it's just one thing leads to the next, is what it really amounts to. And, all we can do as the business owner and contractor, for our customers, is do what's best. Let's just do what's best. And, but when you get into all time highs, seventh sea, all time high wettest, and stuff like that. Things that you can generally get by with, and I don't mean sneakily get by with, but during a normal year, when it just keeps repeating over and over and over and over again, with all this water, then the question becomes, well, when do you suggest we try to get it done? I mean, that's the last thing you're going to ask a customer. But the reality of it is, you know, we can't get perfect placement, perfect timing for everybody. And, yeah, there might be some lines in the property from being wet, but it's nothing generally that's going to damage, if you will, the turf, although it could be if you got an inexperienced operator or whatnot. So, but it can be very problematic, and is beginning to be a little bit problematic for us, to you know to say the least. But we take let me see here, we got phone calls on other services for us, because we're Fred's point, you know we got oh gosh, let's see, um, it's like April out there. I mean, that's the reality of that. So, um, the reality of it is, we need to take and figure out how we're gonna run that route for the day. How we're gonna put the and I kind of bouncing a little bit here, but how we're gonna run that route. Phone calls coming in for additional services. When do you stop taking them, or do you even stop taking them? Because we are going to talk about that side of it too, you know. But the reality of it is, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a second. Even when we get into a backed up situation, then what we can do to try to solve that problem is, number one is, let's look at our workload. But if the workload hasn't been overbooked, and this is when a lot of guys realize that, hey, I have scheduled too much work. I do have too much work, scheduled, where they can work their way through it in a normal year. It's kind of like a guy that does snow, and they set a route up based on um, how many salting runs they can make in a reasonable number of hours, whatever that is. We're not going to talk about that today. But then when they get into a bigger snow, it's like, man, everybody's calling and complaining. You got to set your mow routes up the same way. And I think this is something important to take away from a year like this, is not that we're going to plan total labor hours or total production hours on a excessively wet season, but know that we can't set them up on a a traditionally dry format either, because uh, there are that's why there's an average with everything, right? I mean, the average is there because some are high, some are low, and the middle is your average. But when you're getting phone calls added on, certainly now's not probably the best time to add on a mowing work. Well, people, we've had those calls already where people are, calling, well, my mower's, they've had my mower in the shop and I haven't been able to get to it for 3 weeks. And now you're going out there to grass that's X number of inches taller than what normal would be. And now they're frustrated because the quality of the cut's not right. So, you know, rain brings on its own set of issues for us as owners and managers to work our way through, you know, and I just curious if it works against some of your all scheduling as well. Um, I know, I think it was Aaron this morning was talking about, no, it was somebody else. It was somebody else that we talked to this morning was talking about, they need like 3 solid days of mowing is what it amounts to, to get their mowing route in. And they got rain predicted for us again, you know, uh, I think Wednesday late into Thursday morning. So, so we got partial day today. Tuesday looks good. Wednesday looks decent, but maybe some rain late, but we'll get some updates from BAM on that as we move along, but and get closer to that. But it's just amazing when you look and you start thinking about it that all this rain we've had, people think it's great for our business and it's great for our industry, and to some extent it is, but to some other extent it's really not when we can't get the quality of the cut where we want it. So now we start potentially having disease or fungus problems, not only caused from the wet, but the quality of the cut. And you're thinking, well, man, change your blades more frequently. And obviously, yes, that's being done as well. But still, when everything stays wet, it just makes it a whole lot harder to deal with. And for you young guys out there that and I say young, not age young, just in business young, um, know that wet grass is very problematic, just in a lot of different ways. And even if you're not the person that's responsible for the management of the turf from a fertilization and weed control standpoint, that's when the blame really starts going back and forth. Let's just say Wayne's Lawn Service is treating one of your properties and you're mowing it. And I come in and I'm complaining to the homeowner that because the homeowner's complaining to me that, well, why is our tips of our grass looking like this? Or why are we having, fungus problems or disease problems? And I'm looking around and I've got grass laying all over the place from the guy that was mowing it. So it becomes a blame game, back and forth. And then as the mowing contractor, I'm telling that on the yards we don't spray, I'm out there, I'm telling the customer, well, if you could get them to back up a little bit on the fertilization, we certainly don't need it. And if you could take your irrigation system off of automatic, because it seems to be running on days when it ain't raining or in the rain, and these are all super simple solutions, you know, uh, but it goes back to having that communication, with your customer beforehand, you know. Uh, Uh, True that. Mike says, I joke and tell him that it's somewhat good for business, but it's bad for mental health. And that is it. And you get into all these weeds and disease and fungus issues, and not just lawns, but the cess point in landscapes. It sounds like, well, I thought I was paying to have my beds done, and well, you are, but you know well, here we go back to what seems like excuses to the consumer. And Daniel, I'm just in your opinion here. If you were the consumer, it does go back to it's not our fault, but it is our problem. But why do they think? if you would think like a consumer for a second, why do they think it's our fault when it's really driven by something that's uncontrollable, and that's the weather, whether it's hot, dry, wet, cold, whatever?
I think as the consumer, you're just thinking, I'm paying you to do this, so why isn't it being done? I think that's
Fair.
something everybody thinks
I mean,
from,
yeah, that
well, I'm paying for my Spectrum internet, why isn't it working? You know, well, the weather maybe caused a wind thing to blow a thing down and down the line somewhere. But to the point, I think everybody just, as the consumer, you're thinking that you're like, I'm paying for this to be done. Why am I going to continue to pay for it if it's not going to be done?
yeah. And how do we solve it?
And then as the business, I think that's something to think about too. Like, what solutions are you offering? Even though they may not be taken by the consumer, I think first of all, being proactive is the most transparent looking to the consumer, meaning if you know you've had or you're going to have a lot of problems with, brown patch, let's say, or whatever, because, the conditions are right, put something out before those calls start coming in and those complaints start coming in. So you can kind of, not that you're still not going to get calls and people aren't going to be upset, but at least you've kind of given them something ahead of time to where it doesn't sound like you're making something up as you go.
Right. It's not a on the fly solution for somebody.
But yeah, it sounds less like an excuse whenever you hear it before somebody comes to you for that
Yeah.
reason,
Before it does happen.
or even before they call. Like it, it's kind of, it's like if an employee came to you, or you went to an employee and were like, you haven't done this, you haven't done that, why are whatever. But if they come to you and say, hey, I won't, I'll be here an hour later on Monday, that's a lot better than them showing up an hour later and then telling you why they were late, right? Like it sounds less like an excuse if they're telling you beforehand.
All right.
So I think if you can educate people or at least inform people that, hey, this could be problematic, we are still doing, the same great service that we always do. But because the weather conditions are this, 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 and this, it leads to the higher risk of this occurring. Please be patient with us. If you have any specific questions or needs, please call. We do have other, solutions available if you're experiencing these issues. And then that's ahead of time.
Right. So you're making them feel a little bit better, which again, it's an obvious solution, right?
Yeah.
It is an obvious solution, but then sometimes we get hung up into. I know Joe, Smoking Joe, there in Central Kentucky, as he posted something up uh, recently about he's this has really helped him understand that he's got too much work. You know, too much work. He can't get caught up. Is what his problem's been this summer. Is his inability to be able to get caught up. And I'm not talking bad about him because he posted it on social media, so he put it out there. But I think he's in the same shape as a lot of contractors that it's hard to say no. It's hard to say no, and then when you get in a position that something like this is where it ends up, and where you can't get done, you can't get caught up. So it's like the people that you're getting too late, they're still mad that you're late, you're day or two late or whatever it may be. And very few people are getting that on time cut, if you will, or that on time landscape done. So even though the work is getting completed to some extent, it's really almost still a no win situation. So I don't know. I do know. I've seen it happen multiple times in our experiences here at WLS, and I'm sure this won't be the last time. But I know one thing: I'm ready for it to stop raining for a while. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, but you think about from a marketing perspective. We always talk about, hey, we're a season ahead, thinking about things like that. But the reality of it is you got to keep marketing even though you're behind on what you're doing, because you're working toward that next thing that we're doing, like aeration and overseeding.
Mm-hmm.
Now I will say it is it Mike says it is definitely frustrating, but it's a nice lesson not to schedule 5 days of mowing.
Yeah.
Then that's a very good point, Mike. And that's I was getting to that point actually. That's why we schedule our mowing heavy in the beginning of the week. Okay, and so it gives us, if we do get rain time or whatnot, it gives us additional labor hours that are available in our schedule as we move down the week. But Mondays are, and we kind of alternate that between routes as well. Like somebody may have one route may have a heavy Monday route, somebody may have a heavy Tuesday route and whatnot. So you're not working every day slammed. And then when you do have rain, okay, well, how do we get this coordinated? How do we work it out? So very good point, Mike, that, hey, man, you just got to be careful on the number of hours that we're scheduling.
Yeah. And I think you also have to, this is a great time of, or not time of year, but this is a great situation to go, am I overbooked because I have to be overbooked? Or am I overbooked because maybe I did get a little greedy?
Right.
Like being a little greedy, we can all fall into that trap. But if you're overbooked because you think more work is the answer, then you need to definitely take a look at obviously the number side of your business.
Yeah. Right. Because it is easy to, man, when it's sunny outside and you're not behind because of rain, it's easy to say yes to a customer for that add-on. Mike said good input, Daniel.
Gracias.
So, but that is exactly it. I mean, it's something that's never going to change. We're not going to get around it unless you stop mowing lawns or doing landscape, treating lawns. God, that's a frustrating side for us too. When you do treat some lawns, and then they're in really good shape, and then they deteriorate literally in a day or two or three. It doesn't take long when you get some brown patch going or whatever in the spring. Let's say it's red thread or whatever you get going. It's just gets more problematic all the time, is what it amounts to, and it makes you want to pull your hair out. That's why I'm a firm believer. That's why most of us, the sides of our heads are a little thinner than the hair on top sometimes. But we can't do anything about it other than try to manage it more effectively. And the way we manage it more effectively is, uh, like Mike said, that you learn not to schedule 5 days a week of mowing. You save some hours for something else. And then if for some reason you need to use those hours for mowing, then you can flip flop, your scheduling around a little bit. Like, hey, we were planning on doing this trim and mulch job on Wednesday, but hey, let's do it today. And then Wednesday will be, because we'll probably be mowing. I'm just not just pulling that out of my hat right now, but that's where, when you are a little more diversified with your services, it does give you the opportunity to bounce around and change some, things around within your business. And what maybe would have been on a schedule for today or Tuesday, now being pushed out till Wednesday, but what you had on Wednesday's coming over to Monday, so it does give you that flexibility through diversification, and that can take place as a one truck operation or a multi-crew company. I mean, that's the reality of that as well. So goes back to, if it's easy, everybody do it. I mean, that's the reality of it. But we'll see what we can do. I'm sure we'll be okay. I mean, it always ends up being okay and getting itself worked out, but it's just sometimes the frustrations are there with it. So, but keep marketing. Crazy sitting here talking about maybe you got too much work, and maybe you got too much this, but the reality of it is, we're going to you're going to get through this. Excuse me, we get through it. You'll get through it. We all get through it. But we're always moving that needle toward the next service offering. It's like us. I mean, we got flyer. Katie just ordered flyers for us that we're going to start putting out probably next week. For fall special on landscape lighting. You know, we got some our seasonal flyers on aeration and overseeding. That some years we use more than others. This year might be one of those years where we actually put out more volume than we normally would for aeration and overseeding, uh, because grass isn't looking bad in most cases. You know, you do have some fungus and disease issues going on, but we got to do something to make that phone ring, right? I mean,
I don't know when you would know, like, oh, it's going to be or it has been a rainy year. Like, what point in
at
the
what point do
calendar
you say
do you
that?
start saying that? But and maybe it's too late for this specifically, and maybe it's not. But what about like landscape specific to a rainy year? Like, hey, have you thought about using these plants? They love the rain. They love more water. And then it's kind of like, well, then you're banking on it being continued to rain. But at the same time, people are thinking about it like, hey, it's been really rainy. This person is, talking about some flowers or whatever it may be that do good with with
With
more rain.
Yeah,
Does that get on top of somebody's mind in any given way to make them do a landscape update or whatever with you? I don't know. Just be creative, I guess,
you,
is the
you,
point.
you do, yeah, but just you go with the flow. And Katie is really good with that with our marketing, as to keeping it relevant to what's happening. It's not, yeah, we have scheduled things and that we got going, but she keeps things scheduled accordingly based on current condition and weather. We know we're going to do so much for aeration, so much for seeding. If our schedule's not dictating that, hey, we're hitting our goal as far as scheduled work, then that's when we start doing some additional advertising. So marketing continues during all this, or it should. And that can look different ways. That could be flyers, that could be social media marketing, any whatever it is. But it also can become your crews on a site, looking at something, and man, with all the rain we've had, those bushes over at Miss Smith's house could use trimming again. Where so this could be the year where you get two trims in instead of three, or three instead of two. I mean, so uh, it is very, pay attention to what's going on. Marketing, just in time marketing, does have to be part of your schedule, you know, and then how you incentivize that can be very important too. So, with that being said, let's take a short break and we'll be right back. All right. Welcome back. Welcome back to Profit Time here on Lawn Pro Radio. Appreciate you guys being with us today. It is kind of an odd topic. Now, when I say odd, not an odd topic, just something we haven't had to talk about for a long time, which was a lot of rain, you know. And I think thinking ahead, and if we're going to be forward thinking on this for you guys that do aeration and seeding, which is right on top of us. And I don't know if you've thought about it from a leaf cleanup standpoint or snow, but you know, now's the time to be thinking about all these things. What's my schedule look like? What's reality? And is my reality based on what something normal is, or do I have time built into that schedule that's going to allow me to let's look at it from a snow standpoint for just a second. You know, um, how many hours of service are you going to sell per vehicle or per piece of equipment, or however you look at it within your company? There's different models and how you can do that, but certainly don't sell yourself to capacity. Leave room in there, equipment capacity, labor hour capacity. because when we start selling things to capacity, that leaves zero room for error, which in any business is trouble, right, Daniel? I mean,
Yeah.
even if it's, how would that relate to like the tune up? I mean, there, you don't
Yeah,
want
you
to
just
push
can't.
too hard too long.
Well, yeah, you just don't
And
want to be. You don't want to base your plan around perfection of external circumstances you don't have control over.
yeah,
I mean, you have to base it around it to some degree, but not to, to perfection of those or to no, you know, weird things happening outside of the norm.
whatever that would be.
Yeah, whatever that is.
And it could be a lot of different things that affect that, but just know that,
It'd be like having, having a like a piece of equipment and not having any uh spare parts for it. It's like, oh well, nothing's ever going to happen to my mower. Don't need to worry about
yeah,
carrying an extra this or
don't
having an
need a
extra that.
belt or, yeah.
It's like, well, that's kind of silly.
When, and we made a decision, or I did just last week after, running it through you guys on a snow account. And, we had a little subdivision reach out to us. Really would have been convenient to add them on, and because they're really close to us, probably less than a half mile or from the shop, really close, been easy to do. Um, had a retainer agreed upon, you know, and the guy gave me some information after we had talked a couple times. Actually, he said, "Yeah, well, there's only 110 of us in here," and he said we pay $100 for HOA fees. And I'm thinking, we're going to blow through their total budget and not too many outs realistically.
Yeah.
And we got to talking about it a little bit after, you know, when I say we got to talking about it in here in the office, me and Kyle and Katie and Daniel one day, I said, this is like it's going to be a decent little retainer for what it was. It's like $2,100 retainer for snow. And it was not going to work out in their best interest. After I found out what their budget was, now my hard part of that whole thing was trying to give Mike over there some information without saying, "Hey, I'm not trying to guess what you've got in your all's bank or your reserve or whatever it may be over there, but I just want to let you know that based on, you guys paying $2,100, this isn't going to go real far for what our seasonal averages are here." And I talked to him about that initially, but it's one of those things that when you talk to somebody, Daniel, they hear it, but they don't hear it. That, hey, it just wasn't going to work out. And Kyle's like, well, if we engage in this contract, we've got a 90-day cancellation, and we do that for either party, right? I mean, but the reason we set that up that way is to give us time to replace that account. So, but from our end, what we didn't want to run into was if they didn't want to immediately be released from their contract once they exhausted their $6,000, let's say, that they had set aside for snow. It just had opportunity to get messed up on it. We'll leave it at that, and after we put some firmer numbers down for them, saying, hey, here's our, we normally have 12 to 15 de-icing events minimum, and 5 plowing minimum, based on our zero tolerance uh, model that we run with all of our customers. I just want you guys to be aware of that. And the guy's like, well, no, there's no way our budget can support that. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly why I wanted to reach out. So my question to you all is this: would you have been, and I'm not saying wrong or right, okay? I'm not saying wrong or right, but would you have been that transparent with a customer going in or said, hey, well, they're signing a contract for service at this amount of money. They're going to have to pay it or we're going to have to collect it, and or would you do it a different way like we did, just trying to make sure, hey, they understood that they're getting into something that their budget potentially is not going to substantiate the cost very well? Or would you've taken the retainer money on the account when it was gone, canceled? Just said, okay, we'll cancel service, we'll stop providing service. So, what would you all have done? I'm just curious. And again, I won't feel any better or worse for you. You know, uh, he said, "How was the gentleman's attitude towards you after telling him that?" Well, Mike, I'll tell you. It's hard to tell because we didn't want to have the conversation on the phone. He was one of those that wanted to do things by email, right? So you can't really tell by looking at him and seeing body language and whatnot. But he said, "Well, all I know is I've lived here in Louisville for 20 years, and we've never had the need for that much service back here in our subdivision." And then it goes back to their perception, right, Daniel? I mean, is what
I guess
that
they took a couple of year break. The last couple of years lived in Florida or something.
I mean, yeah, I mean, because
Had the kids shuffling it
the
out.
snow started here early last year, like early December, with a couple 3 to 5 inch snows. So we'd have been through their budget before we ever hit early December. And I just didn't feel right doing that. Um, he didn't try to talk us down necessarily. What he tried to do was say, I just can't imagine us needing that much service, you know. But that's when I responded with, I understand that, but could you imagine if the city of Louisville, and I told him this, I said, could you imagine if the city of Louisville would have only been out 3 or 4 times last year, like you suggest for your neighborhood? Now, I know it's different when you're talking about city liability and concerns versus HOA and concerns, because it is a different level of service. But when I knew going in that I'm not going to be able to give them oh God, I mean, I'm even scared to guess. Probably 20% of what their retainer was going to substantiate and that they felt comfortable with, maybe 25% on a bad year for us and a good year for not having much snow. Um, I just didn't want to do that. I just didn't want to mislead the guy. And I hope that he appreciated it. But the money wouldn't have been there in their budget to pay the bill, not based on 110 homes and $100 annual payment for HOA fees. I can't imagine what they're getting done for $100 a month. When you talk about $10,000 on an HOA, even though it's not a big area, I mean, they've got 4 islands in there that got to be maintained and an entrance common area. I mean, that's got to be $4 or $5,000 of that budget, I would think.
Yeah.
Even being very limited, but I don't know. I don't know what. Yeah, and to Mike's point, maybe somebody's doing it for a $2,000 annual contract and playing the odds.
Maybe they have volunteers that come in the neighborhood and do it every, you know,
have no idea,
who
but
knows?
I just know I think it was in their best interest and our best interest to do the right thing. Because it goes back to being able to shave. My dad always told me that in selling, that in business, that the reality of it is, Wayne, he said, you got to be able to look in a mirror and know that what you did with somebody was the right thing to do. And I feel a whole lot better knowing that I went through it with them and we didn't get them or us in a compromised situation. So um, somebody will do it, and somebody will do it for less money. Somebody will do it for more money. But I just hope that us as an industry, you know, and I want to reiterate that. I just hope that us as an industry know that if you do the right thing will always come back with a reward. And let's see what Ben's got to say here. Um, Ben's I always appreciate Ben's opinions because he's very sales oriented. Did it as he said, "There's nothing like helping a prospective customer effectively. It will come home to you every time." So that's what we're hoping on, Benno. So that's the plan, and appreciate you guys being with me here today on my show. I know we talked a lot about rain and how that can affect our business. And remember that we got our seminar coming up Thursday up there in Danville, Indiana. If you'd like to sit in on that with us, feel free to reach out to the Indiana Professional Lawn and Landscape Association. Go right to their website, I'm sure, and sign up for that field day they're having there. It's going to be a full day event with, like I said, a lot of CEU classes available, several different topics on the irrigation, and then we got ours on bidding and estimating. So we got a nice little business track they've put us on. So looking forward to doing that. But appreciate you guys each and every day tuning into Lawn Pro Radio. And remember, profit is not a dirty word. We will see you next time.